Welcome to another episode of Inside the Artist with your host, John J. Rupert. Today is Friday, October 4th, 2024, and by popular demand, we're taking you back into the creative world of renowned author Emiliano Martin. Good afternoon, Mr. Martin. How are you today?
Good afternoon. How are you, John?
Once again, we here at Inside the Artist heard you've just released another new book. Can you tell us about it?
Certainly. This is a new book of poetry, and it is a book I'm very proud of, like every title I have written in my life. But this one, being the latest, is like in a family when you have a child that all of a sudden brings the light to the family and sparkles vibrations of greatness. At least this is how I feel with my book.
How many pages are in the new book?
The book has about 110 pages, including 96 poems. And some poems were written some time ago, and I put them aside because I did not feel comfortable with at the time. Lately, I pulled them out. I dust the sheets, I made corrections, and I decided to complete the manuscript with old poems that have never been published until now, and new poems that I have created for the book. The book is called Under Any Storm.
Once you, like you just mentioned, once you complete a poem, you said that sometimes you dust it off. Is there a reason why you tend to go back and look at older poems? And how much change do you actually do?
In this case, I did make a lot of changes because I would say about 60% of the poems I pulled out of the drawer, and I didn't feel comfortable at the time I wrote the poems. That is why I kept them in a box, collecting dust. But to answer your question, yes, I did spend time making corrections and going over and over and over. How many times did I say to myself, why did I write that? I did write something I didn't feel comfortable with. So I did spend some time making corrections, yes.
Were there some poems you looked at, like, that's fine?
Yes, especially the short poems. They were, I think I can live with it.
Now, I know you said the title of your book is called Under Any Storm. Did you have any other working titles for this book?
Yes, I did have about 5 titles I was playing with, but this one, Under Any Storm, is the title of a poem that is in the book. And I decided, well, even though I have several titles in my mind going back and forth, I'm going to go ahead with Under Any Storm.
And speaking of poems, we'd like to hear a few if you wouldn't mind.
It would be my pleasure. You know that I love poetry, and I enjoy very much reciting poetry. Since I was a kid, I've been doing it for years, and in my case, it's a long, long time. In 4 Phases is the title of the poem. The state of the mind of the moon can be told monthly, basically in 4 phases. Yet, as the jewel that she is, always wrapped in mystery, it needs absolute permission from the clouds to be perceived and felt in its entire 4 phases. Even with an attitude for its dark side continuously out of sight, we shall not be judgmental, nor being temperamental in a long, hot summer night. Let's remain patiently admiring and rejoice in the geometry of its blessed silver light.
Amazing. We'd like to know where we can purchase this new book, Under Any Storm, in addition to any of your vast libraries of publications. Where can we find it at?
The book is found in the internet, like everything else these days, in Amazon. The book appears under the title Under Any Storm by Emiliano Martin. You can also acquire the book from the publisher itself, lulu.com. There are many literary agencies that provide books all over the world. So it is not a problem. Even just by typing my name in the computer, a long list of publications by myself will appear in the internet, and the books can be procured easily, safely, and deposited at the doorstep of your house.
And we understand this book was just released and you've already sold a bunch of copies already.
People who have read the book so far, they did enjoy it, and that to me is something very inspiring. And I have to appreciate that people bought a book.
Do you find that you write your best poetry when you're happy, when you're sad, or whenever the mood hits you?
Every moment has its personality. And of course, in my case, having a moody personality, I can be happy, I can be sad, I can be joyful, I can be extremely angry about something. I'm human. Humans exhibit their behavior, their mood, in a way that is sometimes a problem, or sometimes it is the way it is. So, obviously, if I am in a happy mood, I can write a happy poem. But most of the time, my mood is always in the thinking mode. And lately I found out that when I let myself go, my poems are very observant and almost philosophical type. Not that I am a philosopher, but my mind dreams of philosophy and situations that we go through in life, and it's interesting. Every moment brings a moody slice of our personality.
In your new book, Under Any Storm, that we're talking about today, what type of poems can the reader expect to see in there?
What kind of poems?
Are they different types? Like, are they structured differently?
This book contains a large variety of subjects. I have love poems, I have philosophical poems, I have social statement poems, I have thinking poems of my own, that I have crazy poems also. It is inevitable. We let our mood go accompanied by the muse, and whichever string the muse pulls on our musical guitar, we never know what we're going to come up with.
And speaking of your new book, I noticed some writing in the back here, and one of the comments is by a James P. Valero. He says, Under Any Storm contains the type of poetry that tastes like poetry and leaves you hunger for more. It is a book of poems well done.
Mr. Valero happens to be a friend of mine, so he was kind enough to write a couple of nice words about the book. He was one of the first individuals that read the manuscript when the book was when the book as a book was probably in the making. And he called me on the phone one day. He says, "Oh man, I love it. It's a good book." So he's a friend of mine. So, what has he got to say?
And understand, he asked you to do something with one of the poems?
He did mention one of poems that appeared in the book. And I said, yeah, I felt pretty good writing about it. He says, man, I would like to hear it in Spanish. And I said, oh, no. My translation days, I think, are over. I don't want to translate any more poems of my own. Because, it's a job that takes a lot of time, and it prevents me from doing something new, something creative. And I've done a lot of translations of my own poems. And he said, oh man, I just like it. One thing led to another, and I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So when I hung up the phone, I sat down and I started to go verse by verse, putting it in Spanish. The words were in Spanish, but when you do a translation like that for poetry, you're not done. Now you have to go back to the writing and massage it and put it in a way that makes sense, poetically speaking. So I ended up doing it, and a couple of days later we talked on the phone and I read it to him, and he says, oh yeah, I like it. Okay.
Well, we here at Inside Arts would love for you to read it to us. First, if you can read it in English, as we've seen in the book, and then the wonderful translation you did for your friend.
Let's see. The poem I'm referring to is in the page 100, and in English it's called Opening Minds. It is interesting that I gave it that title in English, but I was going to give it another title. When I was debating which one do I use, when I translated the poem into the Spanish version, I changed the title.
Oh, wow.
Going back to the original title I had in mind.
The original concept.
Because I do mention that title in one of the verses. So, to answer your question, in Spanish, I have a page that I have typed for my friend, and in English it's called Opening Minds. But like I said, in Spanish I did change by genuinas emociones, which in English means genuine emotions. That is the title I was going to give it in English, but somehow my mind changed to Opening Minds. In either way, genuinas emociones goes like this in the Spanish language. Cuando la mente se abre a sí misma a un desfile de pensamientos profundos, un resonante aplauso acompaña a los versos en llanto por obtener su justicia. Esas palabras escritas muestran las genuinas emociones del alma de un ser humano, agraciadamente navegando por el tiempo al encuentro de individuos como tú y como yo. Somos sentimentales y orgullosas criaturas, cautivas del poema liberador del espíritu, el deseo de un sueño por cumplir. That is the way I translated or adapted the English poem into Spanish. Right or wrong, that's what I did.
I know you had mentioned to us before in one of our previous episodes here that sometimes when you translate one way or the other, you have to change words. Do you have to change any words?
Not too many, but I have to alternate the order of the verses in order to make it sound poetic. In English, the poem goes like this: Opening Minds. When the mind opens itself to the parade of deep thoughts, A resounding applause accompanies the verses that cry out for justice. These written words convey the genuine emotions of a human soul, gracefully navigating through time while encountering individuals like you and me. We are proud and sentimental creatures, captivated by the poetry that liberates the spirit, the fulfillment of a dream. And that is the way both poems came out.
We know this book was just released, and we also found out you're working on some upcoming projects. What are you working on?
I'm always working on something, or I try to keep busy. Presently, I'm working on collecting a manuscript in Spanish. All new poems in Spanish. It's going to take me a long time because by now I have, I think, close to 90 poems collected, but they are not finished. I still have to go over, and I want to make it larger a little bit because I don't know if it's going to be the last book of poetry in Spanish that I'm going to put out or not. I have no idea. Right now I'm in the mode of writing, so it's keeping me extremely busy, and it's going to take me a long time to go over so many pages, and I'll see what I can do.
Now, someone who's bilingual like yourself and an artist, do you find it easier to create your Spanish books or your American books, or as people say, English books?
As we know by now, most people know, English is my adoptive tongue. I learned English when I was 18 because in my high school days I took French and Latin, and I thought French was going to be the language that I was going to improve. So I was not driven to speak in English. I never thought. My life did a turn by coming to America, and now I have to learn English. So, to answer your question, I can write easier in Spanish.
Okay.
But after so many years of living in this country, I can put my mind in the English mode and write in English. And by now, believe it or not, I have more books written in English than in Spanish.
Wow.
So I don't know which one is easier anymore.
Well, I know you have a few that people can find on the web that you've written in both English and Spanish.
Yes.
But like you said, that was a nightmare.
It was a job.
But they were very successful.
I've been lucky, yes. The books have been successful.
Looking at your life today, Mr. Martin, what advice would you give to your young self if you could go back in time, knowing what you know today about the business and about your creativity?
The advice is very simple. If you want to write, write. If you want to swim, swim. If you want to paint, paint. You have to keep doing what you enjoy doing and what you think it is worthwhile. In the case of writing poetry, if you want to write poetry, write poetry. It doesn't have to be good, but it will shape your skill. And at the same time, read poetry, because we learn from others who have done it prior to us, and there is always something to learn from somebody else, especially the good poets. They're there, they have books, and it's a combination of read good poetry and practice your own thoughts in poetry, and just keep going. Another step that helps to anybody in life is proper social skills to communicate with people. Because we can write all we want, but if we write, put it in a box or a drawer, and don't show it up, don't tell anybody, nobody will know that you have been doing beautiful poems or beautiful paintings or beautiful whatever you do in life. You have to show it. You have to share what you are doing. Some people are going to ignore you or me or anybody because people are like that, especially the nobodies. Nobody cares about you have to have a name. Well, you don't make a name by being in the house, not seeing people around you, not seeing the world. The world has to know you. And that's one of the reasons these books are out there, so that people have an idea or an experience to read something of interest, at least in the mind of the author.
Is there anything you think you could have done differently if you could go back in time?
Yes, we are not born with the wisdom to know what we want to do. We learn gradually as we go through life. So there are steps that have to be properly taken, especially when we are young. When we are, like in my case, old and stupid, it's too late. Whatever I've done, it's done. And if I didn't go that far, it's not my fault. It is the circumstances of life. Some people are blessed with a star above their heads and they keep shooting targets and hitting the target all the time, almost without an effort. Other people have to struggle through life and don't be able to. I can go through people in the arts, painters who were not able to sell a painting in their whole life. And there is a long list of good painters, book writers, movie actors. There are people who were good and it didn't matter. Football players, baseball players who never had a chance to be in the World Series, or it's life. Some people don't have the chance. So when we have a chance, use it, because we never know if that opportunity is going to come back later on. Things could have been done different, of course, but when we are young, we didn't know. But the main thing is, in this case of writing poetry, if you like it, keep writing. You will become much better with experience. Everything in life is experience.
So looking back, you had mentioned about interaction. So do you think that one of the things you would have done, knowing today what you know, is you would have promoted yourself a little more when you were younger?
Of course. Without promotion, nobody will know you. And without knowledge of your presence in life, your presence is, you can enjoy yourself, but you're not going anywhere. If people don't know you, you have to let yourself known to the public. And I know it is not that fame is the most important thing in life. It isn't. It doesn't matter, because at the end, we get old, ugly. Nobody wants to deal with. It's life. Older people don't count. The world is for the young generation. It's always, and that young generation in years to come will be old, and there will be another young generation that will empower themselves to be famous, rich, well known. But that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is be able to create something that you do enjoy and make you proud. Fame is an accident that happens to those with determination. And those are my words in one of my poems.
Speaking of poems, once again, where can we find this book and any of your other previous books?
In the internet, through Amazon, or in the case of the publisher lulu.com, you can find, I think I have about 21 books out there. And good or bad, right or wrong, they are there in the internet. If people are interested, you type my name, Emiliano Martin, author of poetry books, and a long list of publishing houses or publishing bookstores and will appear all over the world.
Exactly, that's what I was going to mention. So people don't worry, it's just America, you're all over the world. So no matter what country you're watching this YouTube video from, you can order it.
In my case, that people from Spain has bought my books through Amazon. I know people in Argentina and Mexico that have bought my book through the internet. Because now you don't go to the store and look through the shelves and pull out the book. Those days are over. Here in America we have big bookstores like Barnes and Noble, and I don't know if Borders exist, but they used to be, and there are many bookstores that operate. People buy in the internet, and it's a very easy thing to do because you order the book, you pay for it, usually with a credit card or whatever, and people, I know there are people who are afraid, oh, I don't pay with a credit card, and I understand. There are situations where people get ripped off, but usually there are honest companies that operate that way, and even though you pay for the post station, things like that, they deliver the book in a nice box.
Right to your doorstep, man.
Your doorstep. You don't have to go to the shopping mall. You don't have to go and get in the middle of the rain or the snow,
Yes.
the heat, the summertime. It's a very convenient. People use it or abuse it, and that is the way it is. In the internet, you will find books like under any store.
Mr. Martin, we here at Inside the Artist always listen to our viewers' comments. So when they ask us to share on our YouTube channel here any of your new creativity, we will always be here for them and for you. I myself thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my lifelong friend, my mentor, and for allowing us into your home so we can share and continue to share your creativity with this world. That being said, if you would be so kind, Mr. Martin, to read a few more of your poems for all of us to enjoy while we all anticipate your next interview and your next release.
Okay, John, I shall give it a try. Let's see. On page 11, I have a nice word. A garden of words, which happens to be the first poem in the book.
Oh.
It is obviously this page displays the index. Here it is the first poem of the book. It is called A Garden of Words. Envision a large plantation. Step into the world of a new poetry book and immerse yourself in a garden of words. Enjoy the vivid stanzas unfolding before your eyes, vibrant and natural, like a blooming flower, with a teaching attitude, its presence, a profound lesson about morality, or else using charming analogies and rhyme. All of this is accompanied by an engaging idea unfolding the image that mirrors the daily life situations we all encounter in life. Finally, the poem culminates in a verse of wisdom that leaves a profound and enduring impression as only poetry can provide.
So that's on page 11.
That is on page 11, the first book, the first poem in the book.
Now, what makes you choose what poem is first? Random?
Sometimes, the first poem of the book is a poem that I have read many times and didn't know what to do with it. Really, sometimes. And so I said, I don't know, this is... But there is something in that poem that creates a mystery mood in the reader, saying, I'm not sure of what he means, or I'm not... Let me give it a try on the next page. And that is the path I follow to insert the first poem in the book.
Oh, sort of like they wet their lips a little bit.
Yeah.
Want them more.
Yeah. It's like an opener, and I don't know. Let me see the next page.
Speaking of more, can you give us one more, sir?
Sure, certainly. Let me see. I'm going to read you the poem that holds the title of the book, Under Any Storm. It's a little bit longer by comparison, but it is soaked in silence, staring at the window of my soul. I am subdued by the force, fencing my wishes and hopes, drenching my entire view with an inexplicable attitude. It is like losing control of my immediate resources, preventing me from going on. It is a very raw experience while I cannot act on my own. Deeply submerged in this world and soaked in silence, I give myself some time off to come to the surface with some rhyming thoughts, making me explode. It is an eruption of feelings, fearless, bouncing at will from wall to wall. Filling the air up and down with joy and vibrations conducive to love. And I feel alive, ready to move on, to take over mountains or run through green valleys under any storm. Oh yes, while soaked in silence, I pen down these words, proclaiming endurance that I call my own.
Amazing. Mr. Martin, once again, we here at Inside the Artist want to thank you for your time, your generosity, and your amazing, endless library of creativities. Have a great day, sir. We know we'll see you soon.
Thank you.